This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today as my special guest, I have former AWA light heavyweight champion, former AWA World Tag Team Champion. He's also wrestled for Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, WWF, the Portland territory, and lots of other places. Mr. Electricity himself, the original Steve Regal. How are you doing today, sir?
No, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for the little plug there. But yeah, back when I was going, there were 20 territories, and now it's just one or two. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's hardly anywhere to work now, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how did you get into wrestling to begin with?
Well, actually, I got into it. I built them a wrestling ring. I was a contractor in my younger days, and my wife's father was into business, and they needed a wrestling ring built. And he said, "Can you do it?" I said, "Well, give me the specs. I'll do it." So that's where I started. I built a ring. Then they wanted me to haul it to the towns. So I did that. And then I started refereeing. And then I got my brains beat out for about 3 years in an old hot barn at 106 degrees in the summer. And started at the bottom in Atlanta back in probably 78. But I worked in Indianapolis territory from 72 through 78 and got my brains beat out and then went on the road.
You mentioned getting your brains beat out. Were they still protective of the business, even though your father-in-law was in the business with you? Did they make you kind of pay your dues before teaching you?
Oh, hell yes. My father-in-law beat the shit out of me more than anybody.
So what was the Indianapolis territory like in those days?
Actually, it was very nice for the guys because Dick and Wilbur ran Chicago once a month. They had Borne, and they had that shared with Vern, but they would run Indianapolis once a month. And then they had, as I recall, we worked 3 to 4 nights a week, and everything was, within, a reasonable amount. There might be a trip 200 miles, but then you'd have a trip like 80 miles or 100 miles, and the towns were close. The pay was not that great at that time, but you got to consider the year it was and what kind of house they drew. But they made good money at it, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great way to break in before you went to someplace else, because if I would have went to someplace else when I first started, hell, they wouldn't have even used me because I was so green, and I was a smaller guy. I had trouble keeping weight on, and that's why I went into light heavyweight, because man, I started out at 180, 85 pounds and bulked up to 210, 215. And, I still wasn't as big as all the guys in the business.
What do you think about nowadays where that would be considered, I would say, above average size?
Yeah, that's the difference in our sport from then. And I say sport with the truest sense of the word. And when, not that Vince has a monopoly on the business, but there's really, he's really the only place you can go and make the big, big, big money, which is what everybody shoots for. Back in the 70s and 80s when I was in it, the big, big money everybody shoot for, of course, but it was a lot easier then because people were making money in relation to inflation and what things were paid, what you got paid. But back in the 70s and early 80s when I was on top paying at $3,500 a week, that was a good income, And now, of course, they're making 3 or 4 times that, but it was just good. And then I could take that and go any place else I wanted to work if I wanted to give my notice and go work somewhere else. And I did that as I rose up through the ranks. I went around the country, took my family everywhere, but it paid off. I learned the business, and fortunately I was able to, parlay that into an income and parlay some of that in some retirement stuff. So I'm on the beach in Florida now, retired. Thank God.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And as you say, there are some people making huge amounts of money, but overall, there's less people making money in wrestling as a regular job, whereas in the past, there was all these territories where you could survive. I assume in Indianapolis, you were able to do it full-time right away?
No, I still hauled the ring because that made I got paid more hauling the ring per night than I did wrestling at that stage of my career. The payoffs were brutal. I'd get maybe $100 a night for wrestling, but I've got 250 to set the ring up.
Oh,
So
well, that's
yeah,
not bad.
no, that's not bad, but that's how it was back then because it was a small territory, but Dick the Bruiser was the guy, and Wilbur, of course, but Dick really was the star of the two. Wilbur, he was in it to promote and do it, but he was in it to make the money. He was ready to retire and all that stuff. But Dick was a draw, and it was amazing the TV show that they drew money the way they did all those years. I mean, it was incredible, with the other products coming out to compete with them, you know what I mean, in the other territory.
So Wilbur Snyder was your father-in-law. How did you start dating his daughter?
Well, we knew each other in high school. We both went to Pike High School in Indianapolis, Indiana. And then we went to separate colleges. She went to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. I went to Indiana State in Terre Haute, Indiana. So on the weekends, I'd hitchhike down. I didn't have a car. I couldn't afford one at that stage in my life. On the weekends, I'd hitchhike down to Bloomington, which was about 45 miles from Terre Haute. So I'd go back on Highway 46 and put my thumb out, and somebody would always pick me up. And I'd go to IU to party, and I'd meet her at parties and events that were there because our school was a little smaller. And I liked IU's, vibe, and there was always something going on. And then we gradually started seeing each other more, dating, and then we didn't put any restrictions on each other. We wanted everybody to be free to date around. But about a year and a half later, I asked her to marry me.
And I understand you're still married.
Exactly. It'll be 50 years in August, but you should have seen me getting up the nerve to go to Wilbur and ask for his daughter to marriage.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty scary.
You're pretty well known for your work in the Portland territory. How early on did you get up there?
I went up there in the latter part of 79, and I was there for 80 and part of 81. Then I separated my shoulder, a bad one, man. I mean, I was off for 3 months before I could even think about rehabilitating. So I went back home, took the kids and the wife back home to Indianapolis, which was our home base, put them up in a place that I rented, while I was there. And then I went back out to Portland. I flew back out there and rode with the buddies and rented a car when I needed it. And then made my money back for that 3-month thing. And it was probably, I don't know, another 6 months to a year there. So total time in Portland, probably 2 to 3 years in that range. But I loved Portland. It was a great territory. You worked every night, but towns were 45 minutes away. The farthest town was Eugene, Oregon. That was 100 miles. And you just worked every night, but it was easy. It was like going to a night job. You leave the house at 4 o'clock, come back at midnight, and you were done. It wasn't too bad. And he paid pretty good. Don Owens was a good payer.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. You always hear the payoffs were good there. Did they just give a higher percentage of the house than the other companies?
I don't know how he figured his house. I know in the places I've been to before, they usually figured 30 to 35% of the gate for the talent. I don't know how Don did his, but all I'm saying is I made more than I thought I was going to make, and I got to be able to save a little money too. So, and that's how you gauge a system. It's not how much you make, it's how much you can save, as you will know.
Rick Brooks wants to know if you have any memories of working with Matt Borne in that territory.
Oh, hell yes. Matt Borne and I were crazy. We traveled together a lot. And at that stage of his career, Matt was a young hellfire. I mean, he loved to party, loved to the party things, as you can imagine. He loved to do those to excess. And there were many nights I had to drive him home or carry him in the door. But he was a good guy. At that stage, Matt was a good guy. We were good friends. Still are to this day, but I haven't seen him in years. I don't, I don't know. I think he died. I don't know. But he was a good guy.
Yeah, I think he died sometime in the last 4 or 5 years, unfortunately. But
yeah, I hate to hear about all the guys dying, because my God, Adrian, and when I start going through the list, there's probably 20 guys that I travel with that were good friends, and we had fun on the road, and they're gone, man. And I'm only going to be 70, and some of them were younger than me, and it's just sad, man. That road will kill you. It really will. That business will kill you if you let it.
Al says you were in Portland at the same time as former WWF champion Stan Stasiak. Do you have any memories of him?
Oh, God, yeah. I loved him. He was a great guy. What a nice a tutor or a teacher, whatever you want to call it. he would give me tips, and it just was. He was like the best dancer you ever danced with as far as wrestling in the ring. He was smooth as silk and just a great guy. And he was over in Portland, and I loved him to death, man. I look forward to working with him. He was great.
Johnny Edwards wants to know if you could share any memories of your time in the Memphis territory.
Oh my God, I love Memphis too. Memphis was great. Jarrett was the first guy that actually gave me a push to, be on top in a territory, because I was a smaller guy, and they liked my talent, but size was a big thing back then. But Jerry took me and made me tag team champs, maybe Southern champ. Did a lot for me. I loved the territory. The trips were close. I could go back to Indianapolis for 2 days a week. And third day, when we worked Evansville, I'd go home for that night, go back to Memphis on Thursday. But Jerry was a good promoter. He paid well. He had a great territory during that stage. And I learned a lot there also. Now, I regret some of the things I did along the way, or some of the decisions I made working for him. But you can always look back and say, yeah, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. But the bottom line was he paid well. I had fun. I enjoyed it. I respect Jarrett. I guess he's working with Vince now up at WWF. But the man's got an incredible mind for the business. Incredible.
Yeah, he's working with a bunch of different companies, including this new version of World Class Wrestling in Texas that's getting going in the fall, that I'm also involved with. So he's still staying involved in wrestling.
Well, good for him. And listen to him, because he's a genius. He's the Einstein of the wrestling business, in my opinion.
Now, you also spent a good amount of time in Texas. Could you talk about your time working that territory?
Oh, that was fun too. I mean, every place I went, I had fun, but that was just kind of an in-between place there. I was getting ready to get off the road. I had already bought a home in Indianapolis, built a home in Indianapolis, and stuck my family there. And I went down to Texas to pick up a few bucks. And I was only there like 6 months to a year, if that. And with Carrie and the Von Erich family, they were there. That was where I was. And, I got a good push there, and I worked there. I loved it. It was pretty easy matches, good money. But I knew the end was coming. And from there, I think I went back out to Charlotte for another few months to, I just wanted to build up my money to get back in and get the house settled and get off on a real job. You know what I mean? Because I knew I didn't want, I'm not like a lot of guys that stay till they're 60, 65. I got out of the business when I was 35 years old, 35 to 40, 35 full time, because any professional athlete that's over 35 out there is kidding himself. Your body's going to get damaged. You're going to get damaged. And if you stay another 30 years, you're going to be lucky if you're able to walk. Look at Hulk. I mean, he's got every artificial joint in his body that you can have from all the damage, which, God bless him, he's still alive and he can function. But I didn't want to do that to my family. So I saved enough money to buy a home and have a little bit of a savings account, and went back home and got a basic job and paid the bills,
Yeah, Hogan, for sure. He's lucky he made all the money he did with all the operations he's had over the years, particularly his back, I think.
Oh God, yes. Terry's had some bad stuff. I was with him when he started in '79. He came through Memphis, and he and I were partners for a while. So I was a guy that went out and sold like hell and gave him the big comeback. And he learned real quick, and he learned. And then I sent him to Borne. I said, Terry, you need to call Borne up in AWA. You can make some money. He'll love you. And he did. And then I went back up to Borne a couple years later, and Hulk was there. And it's stupid Borne, and God bless him, rest his soul. Borne was, I say stupid, he was just not business oriented. He let Hulk go to Vince instead of keeping him there. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't have taken that much to keep him in Minneapolis. But Vince gave him the world, and that's where he made his money. And I think he probably would have made as much with Borne, but Borne would have wanted too much of everything that he made, and where Vince was a little more fair on that stuff. But that's all history. But Hulk was one, I was with him through his starting his reign of popularity. He was a great guy too, good to travel with, fun guy. I love him to death. But man, he made it big. And if it wasn't for that split that he went to Vince, I don't know if he would have ever made it that. He would have still made it that big later on down the road. But if he would have stayed with Borne was just 3 nights a week, Good money, don't get me wrong, but he was some Nationwide, some other TV shows all over the United States, but it wasn't what Vince was planning or plotting. And I give it to Vince. He walked into the TV show one time where we were taping in AWA, and I had a suitcase full of cash. I don't know, I think it was like 250 grand, and offered it to Vern. From what I hear, I wasn't actually there, but from what I hear, he offered it to Vern to, say, hey, I'm going to get your TV, or I'm going to get TV and compete. If you want this, I'm going to buy you out. Well, of course, Vern didn't take it, and the rest is history. 2 years later, Vern was out of business.
What was Hulk like in those days? You mentioned he was fun, but could you tell he was going to be a big superstar, or was he just to you another big guy that might make it?
No, I could tell. You could see. Not only was he big, but he was hungry. He wanted to learn. You know what I mean? He'd ask me stuff, and I'd tell him. And Jimmy Valiant, handsome Jimmy Valiant, was in the territory at that time, and he asked Jimmy all kinds of stuff. He wanted to be a superstar, and he knew he had to get big, and he was. When he first started in Memphis, man, he was like 375, 380. He was big. He was huge. He cut it all later, for when he was on the road to get cut up a little more and not have to carry so much weight. But he was huge, and he caught on so quickly. He really caught on to the business, and it's a timing thing. It's like dancing with a stranger, and he caught on to that so quickly, and that's what you need, because there's guys, trust me, there's guys out there that are bigger than me, can run faster, dodge fast, whatever you say, but they can't get it. They don't get it in the pro wrestling ring. When you're in front of 20,000 people and you can do something in the ring and make them lift their finger or boo or cheer, then you got it. If you don't have that, get your ass out, because you're going to go broke.
Was it Hulk that got you your jobs in WWE in later years?
No, it wasn't Hulk so much. When I wanted to work for Vince, but I heard he was the territory was brutal for travel at that time, and that was 85 or 86, I believe. And I called Vince. I said, you got a spotter that, and he's not going to use me on top. I was a smaller guy, and I understood that. I said, hey, I just want to make money. I just want to make money. Anyway, he brought me in. I lasted about 3 months because the travel was so brutal. I went to Madison Square Garden on Monday night. Tuesday, I was in Sacramento Arco Arena. Wednesday, I was in Portland, Oregon. Thursday, like that, Phoenix and Tampa. And I mean, for 3 months, I traveled. I got enough airline frequent flyer miles in 3 months to buy 3 round trip tickets for my wife. You know what I mean? So it was brutal on me. You couldn't get to the gym to work out because you were traveling all day. You had to get a flight at 7:30 in the morning some mornings to get to the town. Then you try to work out and eat, and you get screwed up doing that because you couldn't get in the hotel. It was crazy, man. And I know it's better now because they don't have that big a schedule. But man, it was brutal. And I was a family man. I said, I can't take this. I said, Vince, I'm sorry, I got to go. And I did. And that was the last time I wrestled for any big major company. And no, I liked working for him. He paid well. He paid very well. But I just, I got a family. I want to see him.
Yeah, I saw your match teaming with Jimmy Jack Funk against the Rougeos the other night. That was pretty good. I guess you would have just been paid on a nightly basis according to the house when you worked for them.
Correct. That's correct. I think my deal was 500 a night and more when it's there. But to be honest with you, I think the 3 months I worked for Vince, I probably averaged 3,500 a week. But they paid all the trans, they paid all the airline tickets and that stuff. So, that was pretty good back in 85.
Yeah, no kidding. And of course, you're best remembered for the AWA. You had several stints there. What was your first hookup with that company?
Well, to be honest with you, I went from my father-in-law and Pepper Gomez and a couple of Big John Studd and a couple of Jacques Goulet in Indianapolis, beating the crap out of me for 3 months in a hot barn, to Minneapolis with Vern and Greg and all the people up there. And they beat the crap out of me too. So Vern said, when you want to go somewhere, give me a call. So, of course, what I did when I wanted to go leave Dick the Bruiser and the Indianapolis promotion, the WWA, I called Vern and said, hey, I'd like to go somewhere and learn this business. Okay. And he called me the next day, had me booked in Atlanta, Georgia with Jim Barnett and where Tommy Rich was. He said, Okay, call him. You're going to start there. And that's what he did. He just was a good friend, a family friend, of course, too, but liked me. His son was smaller, so he understood, and he was smaller too, as far as that goes. And he was the one that actually helped me get started to go to the territories and get a name for myself. But it wasn't easy there either. Atlanta at the time, there were a lot of guys that, you know, want to take advantage of you. And I was a green ass rookie, you know, and they did it. But you learn as you go, you know, it's like Hollywood. Nobody starts out on top. You know what I mean?
And of course, you beat Buck Zumhoff for that AWA light heavyweight championship. Any memories of that? And did you suspect at all at that time that he was such a shady character that came out in later years?
You know, that's a sad story. Buck was a energetic, freakish kind of guy, you know, and yell and scream and play his rock and roll music. Had a great gimmick. Wasn't a big guy. Wasn't that good of a wrestler, but he did it. You know, he went through the camp and went through the starter, and Borne gave him a break because he was a tough kid. They beat the crap out of him. I got to give him that. But as it wore on, and later on in his career, after I had left and everything else, I knew he kind of liked, you know, the ladies a little bit, but I didn't realize how young he liked them until later. But of course, hey, we all pay for what we do. Buck's in prison for the rest of his life. He ain't going to get out.
And as far as your run as light heavyweight championship, how important was that to you at that time?
Oh, it was great. All that does was make you more money on the card. If you were a champion for Borne, you got the treatment. You know what I mean? I mean, you're the champ. And the problem was back then there weren't that many light heavyweights who were able to, you know, put on a good match. You know what I'm saying? And that was hard. So I'd always be working guys that were actually heavyweights or be in that category. But it was okay. It was a great run. And you know, it's showbiz anyway. I mean, you take your physical punishment, no doubt. But the bottom line is to put butts in the seat and put uh, audience in the TV show. So that's the bottom line.
Ronaldo wants to know if you ever met young Shawn Michaels when he was in the AWA in '86.
No, we didn't cross paths. I didn't get to meet him. Doggone it. I knew Marty Jannetty fairly well. Well, not fairly well, but I met him a couple times. I never ran across Shawn, but I had left the territory. I went down to Dallas for a run before I went back home to Indianapolis. I left Borne and Greg because I saw the incoming, and you know I didn't want to, you know, stay around. But anyway, they came in after I left, so I never met Shawn. But what a talent! Geez, I mean, I see his stuff all, you know, even back then in '86, '85, '86, '87 when he started with Borne. The kid had a lot of talent. I mean, holy crap! He could, that kick of his and his gimmick, his look. Now, of course, it's 25, 30 years later. I don't know what he looks like now, but hey, in my book, he was one of the top 10 in his weight class.
And of course, you defeated the Road Warriors with Jimmy Garvin for the AWA tag team titles. What was it like working with those two who were at their peak in those days?
Oh, I'll tell you what, man. Yeah, we feared for our lives, and that's the honest God's truth. Jimmy's wife, Patty, she was our valet, and we, you know, before we got in the ring, we said, "Hey, anything happens, and they, you know, get a little rough with you, run for the locker room," because they were young guys, and they wouldn't do it on purpose, but man, they'd pick you up to slam you, and they wouldn't control it. You know what I mean? And it was kind of scary working with them, and they were tough. Hawk could knock you out in 10 seconds, and so could Animal. And they were huge, and they were over. When we beat them, which of course we cheated, had the Freebirds come and get involved, but when we beat them, we did not get back to our dressing room for like 20 minutes. We had to fight our way through the crowd with the cops around us, fighting people jumping over us and throwing shit. And it was just incredible, the heat we had. And it made us, I mean, from that on, you know, we ran. But then that was towards the downfall of AWA anyway. But still, if it would have been normal territory, normal timing, we would have had a run for another year or so as champions and made buku amounts of money. But that wasn't in the stars.
Did they hold any grudge against you for having to drop the title to you guys at that time?
Oh, hell no. They told Greg and Borne that we're the only ones they drop it to. They were very picky. They said, yeah, we'll drop it to Steve and Jimmy.
It was. And you mentioned earlier a lot of the wrestlers that pass away. Could you have imagined that those two would be both gone by now? I think Animal was only 60 and
Oh,
Hawk
I
was
know.
even younger.
I know. And now Mike Hegstrand, Animal. No, wait, he was Hawk. He had he would do things to the max. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like if somebody's going to 6 beers, he'll drink 20 beers, and that's how his personality was. And I knew, I don't know if he's on roids or whatever else he was on, but the bottom line is you can't push your body like that and travel every night and party without doing some damage. And that's what happened to Hawk. He died at a much younger age, heart problems. And with Joe Laurinaitis, he was a family man. He didn't party and stuff, but he pushed himself to the limit with the travel and the working out and all that stuff. And at 60 years age, boom, he drops dead of a heart attack. I mean, you've got to take care of yourself. And of course, we didn't know. All we cared about was making money and getting to the town. If we had, it was like a game show, make that town, you know, whatever. If you had to climb 20 snowy mountains and get 10 cab rides, you got to make that town, you know. And sometimes it wasn't so easy. And sometimes you didn't want to call it. You wanted to call in, but you couldn't, you know what I mean? But anyway, the Road Warriors, God bless them. They were great guys, good family men. And I'm sad that they're gone, brother, because I'm only going to be 70 in August. And there's so many guys I was with that are gone. And it's just sad. It's really sad.
How was working Las Vegas when you were with the AWA?
Oh, Vegas was that was an all night. You're never going to sleep in Las Vegas. I mean, we knew that when we went out there. When we go there, we'd tell Greg or Vern, whoever it was that booked it, okay, book us on, you know, our first night in Vegas on that loop out there, which was Salt Lake City, Vegas, and I think San Francisco or Phoenix, something like that. But said book us in Vegas the first night so we can get some rest in the other towns, because we go to Vegas, you gamble all night, you know, and have fun. And it was a fun town, and you didn't get much sleep or able to work out, so you flew to the town the next day and tried to catch up for the next 3 days. But it was fun, yeah.
I guess you were married, but you probably saw the groupies and stuff with the other wrestlers in those days, which was more prevalent than today.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There were hangers on and arena rats, we called them. But you know, if you wanted to do that kind of thing, more power to you. I was married. I had all I could handle. You know, I didn't need any girlfriends or anything happening on the road. And I appreciated them coming up and getting autographs and all that. And, oh, Steve, you're so cute and all that. That's great. I love it. But you know, I didn't have time for that. You know, I had a wife and 2 daughters at home that I had to raise, and you know, I had to go to the next town to make the money to do that. So I'll put it this way: if you want to fool around, you certainly can. You know what I mean?
What was the schedule like in AWA? I hear it was one of the better territories to work as far as being home with your family.
Yes, it was, because Vern was a family man from the get-go. And I think if the other territories could have done that type of thing, would have been more guys in it and more guys staying in it. But that's just speculation. Laverne only worked you at the most 3 nights a week, and it maybe occasionally be 4 nights a week, but the next week you'd only work 2 weeks. We had TV one day every week where we did our interviews, and that was like a 6-hour span from like noon to 6 on a Wednesday or whatever it was, once weekly. And then, you know, you had down, and Vern had a private plane. So if it was, you know, a town 300 miles or more, we'd fly the private plane. And in the other towns like Denver and all the other ones out there, we'd fly commercial and spend the night and have a little break and come back the next day or catch a town on the way back in. But it was great. It was one of the only territories that worked you that least amount of work where you could make the most amount of money. It was great. Everybody wanted to work there.
Herb Simmons, who's a promoter in the St. Louis area, says hello, and he asks if you remember him from the Spike Huber and Brody days in Illinois.
Oh, hell yeah. I remember Herb. How's he doing?
I think I talked to him a couple weeks ago. He's doing well.
Oh, good. Tell him I said hello too, because yeah, I remember him. Chicago, man. Chicago was a really multi-unit town. I mean, everybody wrestled in Chicago. I had a show there, you know, through the years, and it's just like kind of like New York City, but not. Chicago was the hub where a lot of different promotion, a lot of different guys would come through there, and you got to meet a lot of guys, and it was kind of fun, you know, at night after the matches, go have a few beers with guys you haven't seen for a while. But yeah, Chicago was great.
Matt R wants to know if it's true you made your Crockett Promotions debut in Baltimore, and he wants to know how you found working for Crockett overall.
I worked for Crockett's twice. First time I was a green ass rookie back in '78, I believe, or '77, and only stayed there about 3 to 4 months, but got a great education in the business. Then I came back, I think in 84, 85, and to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you what town I worked in at what night. You know, that's been so long ago. But I do remember Crockett's paid well. Jimmy was a little cranky. You know, Jim Crockett was a little cranky guy, but he paid well. And his brother David was kind of like, to me, he was the brains of the organization and the organizer. And hey, they were good to work for. But, you know, like anything else, they lasted longer than a lot of guys, other promotions did, competing with Vince. But eventually, you know, Vince just outspent everybody and outdrew everybody, and the business was done, which is sad because, you know, there's 85 to 300 wrestlers that were out of work because of that deal. You know what I mean?
What do you think the biggest downfall was for Vern? Why he went out of business? Was it just Vince coming in and stealing his top talent?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it was, because Vern was smart. Greg was smart. They knew how to run a show and how to run a business. Their talent's getting picked off. It's like you're working at Walmart and Kmart comes up to you and says, "Hey, what are you making here at Walmart?" And you say, "I'm making $10 an hour." And Kmart says, "Hey, I'm going to make you $50 an hour if you come right now." What would you do? You'd go with Kmart, and that's what happened.
I see. As far as gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, there's a fan on here that wants to know if you still keep in touch with him, and was there ever any consideration of making you a full-time Freebird?
We talked about the Freebird thing, but it didn't really pan out to a point where we could fit it in somewhere. It was a possibility at one time, but hey, they were their own guys, and of course, God bless them, they're all dead, but Michael. But Jimmy and I were kind of an off branch of that, but Jim and I got together because we were kindred spirits. You know, your tag partner's got to be somebody that you got. Jimmy was married and had his wife with him on the road, so I rode with him, so my wife wouldn't think I was fooling around with anybody, and it worked out pretty good. And Jimmy was a hell of a worker, and he didn't want to ever go to work for WAF because of the schedule, and neither did I. But I ended up doing it for 3 months. But anyway, we made a good team, and we were good friends. And to this day, yeah, I talk with him probably once a year. He's a retired airline pilot, man. He was a hell of a pilot, and every time we needed a plane to go somewhere, we'd rent it, and he would fly it. And especially when I worked in Charlotte there for a while. And he's a hell of a pilot. He retired, and he's living a good life over there in Charlotte. And I'm retired down here in Pompano Beach and living as good a life as I can, and kind of good.
When you got out of the wrestling business, you mentioned earlier you worked a regular job. What was your regular job?
Well, the only person that would hire me, here's the problem. When you're almost 40 years old and you fill out an application and the guy says, "Now, what'd you do in the past?" I said, "I was a pro wrestler." What? You know, they didn't understand. So my first job, my only job, was the only thing that would hire me was straight commission sales work. No matter what the product was, they're going to pay me. They're going to pay me on commission. So I was with a company, I believe it's called Curtis Industries, and they have a big catalog of like nuts and bolts and screwdrivers and fittings and all kinds of stuff like that. You know, a big catalog. So I would go to customers or leads and say, "Hey, you need some of this," and flip them through the catalog and sell it. Well, I ended up being his #1 salesperson and make a lot of money. It was easy, and I was in the sales world. And from that point on, it was either auto parts or stuff like that. And I did that until I was, you know, ready to retire, which was, you know, a few years ago.
There's a fan on here that wants to know about what it was like being in the ring with Mad Dog Vachon.
My advice is run fast and hard. Don't stay in the ring with him. He was a crazy guy, but honestly, he was very nice. But he's a wild man, you know, and you don't want to, number one, piss him off. And he was a wild man. He's scary. He's a scary man, but if you didn't know him, but yeah, yeah, the normal person wouldn't want to ride in an airplane with him. We were on a small plane with him one night. And he opened the door. I thought we were all going to die.
I heard that story actually. That's that's a miracle you all didn't get sucked out of the airplane.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's really a miracle. Thank God we were all seatbelted in. It was crazy, a crazy move, and he got a lot of heat for it. But he just, he didn't care. He was nuts.
Tony would like to know, what did you think about Jerry Lawler, who I'm sure you crossed paths with?
Oh, Jerry's one of the best there is, man. Best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. Whatever that kid used to say, Bret Hart. But Jerry started in Memphis, and from that point on, Memphis, he was God. He could do anything he wanted in Memphis, and he had the talent. He had Jarrett liked him, and of course, using specifically. I learned a lot working with Jerry when I was down in Memphis territory, and now I guess he's working with Vince and doing the co-commentary, which he's good at that too. Jerry's just one of those guys in our business that he can do anything he wants and make money at it. And he's a great guy and likes to have fun on the road, of course. Likes to pull ribs and stuff like that, but he's a good guy.
Frizzy wants to know if you had any interactions with Rick Rude.
Briefly, Rick and I were different generations. I had some interaction with him in Dallas when I was down there working back towards the end of my career when he was kind of just starting out. And it was fun. We and I partied together a couple nights. It was fun. And then I think that's the last time I saw him in person and then I see where he was going and all the territories and all that. But he turned out to be a hell of a worker and made his job. But there again, there's a young guy that died too young. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe he was only 40, and there's some question whether or not that was intentional or not, but I won't get into that. But as far as being sorry?
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah. As far as being a heel for the younger wrestlers watching this, you were a great heel. Do you have any advice out there for maybe some of the up and coming wrestlers?
Well, the best advice is watch the older guys. Get the tapes. I'm on YouTube. There's like 100 YouTube tapes of me on there, and you can do anybody. Look them up on the internet nowadays. Watch their matches, see what they do, and get the psychology in your mind. The psychology in your mind is where it's at. You got to get that crowd to hate you or love you so bad that they love you so bad they want to come in the ring and give you a hug, and they hate you so bad they want to come in there and hit you over the head with a stick. That's all it is. It's a psychological game with your body.
Were you ever attacked by fans in your career?
Oh, hell yes. More than once.
I guess there wasn't guardrails in most of the buildings in those days, I'd imagine.
No, and sometimes it was scary, but all you had to do was just keep swinging and keep moving. If you ever went down or didn't keep swinging, you're going to get hurt. But fortunately, I never did. But it happens. And nowadays, they got railings and all that stuff. So I don't think the way they do TV with their screens now, there's going to be that much trouble with them. Poor Vince has had to do that with the screen thing, Zoom thing, on TV. Yeah. That's got to be tough.
Yeah, and the pumped-in crowd noise with the fake booze and everything.
Yeah, that's crazy.
At least it's coming to an end now. Speaking of tapes and watching you on tape, the first time I remember seeing you was, I think there was 4 or 6 AWA VHS tapes that they released in the mid 80s. And I think you were on almost all of them. Jimmy Garvin and you were featured in the tag team one, and you were on the Road Warrior ones as well. Do you remember those tapes that were, I guess, released internationally?
Well, hell yes. I made a lot of money off of those. I remember them. Yeah, they were good. It was great. It was something that at that stage of the game, the guys, the manufacturers and toy makers, they would come in the locker room and say, hey, we want to do this, this, and this. It's, oh, yeah, sure. We've heard that before. And we signed a deal for like 25% with them for whatever it was. We said, yeah, we'll see it when we see it, right? Because nobody ever brought it to market. Well, all of a sudden, I'm walking in a Walmart one day, and my doll's on the rack. Me and Jimmy and Precious are on the rack, and it's a 1995 set. I said, holy shit, they did it. And then I started getting royalty checks. I said, "Oh my God." That was good for probably 3 to 4 years. But then, I was out of business, or not very hot after that, because I was on my way out anyway. But yeah, it was a great thing. I never thought it'd come to that. And now Vince is taking it to another level with his product. So yeah, who knows,
You mentioned Precious. She would have been one of the first divas that was really popular. Any memories of working with her?
Oh, she was a sweetheart. She learned and knew the business, because she went with Jimmy. Jimmy was down in Texas for a while with her. I think that's where they started the gimmick. But anyway, she was an experienced veteran, not a scared little girl, trying to be a manager. She knew what to do, when to do it. Her timing was excellent. She was pretty. She played the part with Jimmy and me, and it worked great. It got us a lot more heat than we would just by ourselves.
Would she have had her own dressing room, or would she have been in the male locker room just keeping her
Oh no,
eyes?
she had her own dressing room. They got her own dressing room. That was part of the deal. Yeah.
Paul would like to know if you ever wrestled Dynamite Kid when you were in Portland.
No, I didn't. I didn't cross paths with Dynamite Kid. I think I worked for Vince for about 30 seconds there for a while, but I think I wrestled. Not Dynamite Kid. Man, no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Maria would like to know who your favorite match of your career was against and why.
Geez, man. I couldn't remember just one that was my favorite or the best. They were all good to me. Every night that I went out there, I wanted to do my very, very best. And I will say that there were some guys I wrestled with that were better than others, but whatever happened, I wanted to make it a good match. Whether people were booing me or cheering me, and that was my reward besides the money. If I got them to boo or cheer me at the end, if they were throwing stuff at me, I did my job. You know what I mean? That's all I cared about.
What match would have been your best payoff? You don't have to say the number, but do you remember your highest paid match?
That would have had to have been the big shows when we, at the end of in the mid to late mid '80s, when Vern was going out to try to compete. I forget what we went to a gambling place out in Jersey or something, Atlantic City, and that week, those payments, that was probably the best we did for a long while, because it drew some money, and I guess they got some casino money and so forth. But yeah, that would be it. Towards the end of my career, mid '80s.
Mike would like to know, who are you still friends with in the wrestling business?
Oh, I never had any enemies to speak of. I was pretty likable, and most of the guys I worked with were likable too. I'd stay in touch with Jesse occasionally. Jesse and I talk on the internet, and he's down in Mexico. God bless him. Good for him. He's always wanted to do that, and he did. And of course, he's working for Vince, which is great. And he does a great job. Jesse was a one-of-a-kind talent, a good friend, great guy. I can't say enough about him. But yeah, he was probably one of my best friends on the road.
I guess you must have been pretty happy when he became governor.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I supported him all the way. Well, first he became mayor of his little town, and then he ran for governor, and it was incredible because, I'm thinking, this is my partner. He was in the wrestling business, and he's going for governor. And then when he won, I was totally shocked. I couldn't believe it.
Joseph would like to know if you have any memories of working with Mike Graham.
Mike and I never worked together as a match. I think I did one time with him in the AWA for the light heavyweight title. I think we did a couple of 3 matches during that run. But other than that, I don't think Mike and I ever worked in any territory or anything together. And he was a great guy and hell of a worker. But he was like me, as a smaller guy. And, there's not at that time, at that stage of the game, there was not a big spot for the light guys. It's a little more easier nowadays. But back then, man, it was tough.
Tony says your white hair and black beard inspired a generation.
Well, I hope so. I tried to be different.
Brett wants to know if it bothers you how much the business has changed and today's performers don't protect the business at all, and it's pretty much a different business, sadly.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot different, but what can I say? I had my run in it when it was fun. I made money. I can't complain. And if that's what they want to do with it and turn the business into a shit product, that's their point. That's their problem. I don't really care. All the guys that I wrestle with are retired or dead, and the promotions are out of business that I ran with. So it doesn't make it an issue with me if they're, you know, thriving or not. And I wish the best to whoever is. I wish the best to Vince. I hope he makes $1 billion more. He doesn't need it, but I hope he does, because wrestling is was near and dear to me, but it's just not the same. You know what I mean?
Ivan wants to know if you ever met William Regal, who, of course, he also used the name Steve Regal. So there's always some confusion. I mean, you had the name first, but in later years, he was in WWE and WCW, so it caused some confusion.
Yes, it did, and no big deal. I mean, hey, that guy's a hell of a hand. Number one, as a pro, and number two, he could kick anybody's ass. He could amateur out wrestle anybody. He'd tie you up and break your arms off your legs. You know what I mean? He's that tough. But I don't mind that. I mean, I was out of the business. He called himself Sir William Regal, and he started saying Sir Stephen. So what? I didn't care. I didn't want to sue him or say, hey, don't use my name. Who cares? My name's out there again. So people, that stirred up a little interest in me. I sold a few more dolls and pictures. Who cares? You know what I mean?
The Cobra wants to know what wrestlers you enjoyed working with in the ring the most.
Oh God, man, that's so far back. I enjoyed every night that I was in the business. It didn't matter who I was wrestling. My goal was to go out there, give 110% to that fan base and make as much money as I could. That was it. Didn't matter who I was wrestling or what was going on. I went out there to give it 110% every night.
Did you have a favorite town to wrestle in or favorite arena?
I love the Chicago Amphitheater. I don't even know if that's even the building's still there, but it was so loud that, I mean, it was louder than Madison Square Garden, than the building out there in Oakland Park, or Oakland, California. It was so loud, and people were so close to the ring. It was just incredible. Chicago Amphitheater, yeah, hands down.
Stevie TV wants to know if the atmosphere of the WWE events was different than the AWA.
Well, when I went to work for Vince in the mid 80s, no, it wasn't any much different. It was just the travel was brutal. I mean, like I told you earlier, Vern, you'd work 3 nights a week for the AWA, and then you'd go from that to Vince booking you 8 times a week, and different, flying different places every night. But no, it's not that much different. Our business is our business. Even now with the Zoom TV and what's going on, it's not quite the same, because they don't beat the crap out of the guys and get them stretched by old time wrestlers like they used to. But that's okay, as long as they learn the business and respect it and are able to perform. That's the key. The key is in the performance, and the key is in the TV ratings. That's where it's at.
Rick Brooks wants to know if you ever wrestled the Sawyer brothers.
Oh, never wrestled them, but I was with Buzz in Portland for a short span of time. And then Hack Sawyer and his younger brother and I were out in Portland together for a while too. But that's the only 2 times I really, hung with him and rode with him a little bit. But yeah, we've crossed paths along the way. But yeah, Buzz was a wild man. I will say that. He was a wild man. And I don't know what Hack's doing now, but Hack was a good kid, learned well, was a good hand, and was another smaller guy that, couldn't go make it, in a big territory, but he did well for himself.
Someone wants to know if you ever worked the Puerto Rico territory.
Never did, never will. That place is dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's finally out of business there. The company where Brody was killed. I heard they actually stopped running shows. So yeah, you probably made a good decision there.
Yes, probably.
Simon says you still look tremendous, and he's wondering what held you back in WWE.
You mean for Vince?
Yeah, like is there something that prevented you from getting the push, or did you just not stay long
No,
enough.
that's the bottom line. Vince was willing to look at me and use me where he could. And honestly, if I would have stayed, I probably believe he would have used me better in the middle of the card. But I'd never be a main event unless I was a tag team partner or had an angle going. But he didn't know me. I'm from the Midwest. He's from New York City. You know, our personalities clashed a little bit, and I was a smaller guy. But hey, Vince is a good scout of talent. He knows what to do. He's one of the smartest men in the business. And it just, I was there about 3 months, and he paid me well. Don't get me wrong. But I could see that I was at the end of my career because I wanted to go home and be with my family. I didn't want to travel that much. And Vince, if I would have stayed, maybe in the next 3 to 6 months, Vince would have found a spot and say, hey, Steve would be great for this. And let me, but I didn't want to be on the road that long. So I quit. You know, I retired. I gave my notice and came home.
Dallas says he seems to remember you defeating Jose Rivera in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, that was probably in the Garden. Yeah, and that was probably the opening match or the second one, whatever.
Constipated in Sin City wants to know if you still have your ring jackets.
Oh no, man, I gave those away a long time ago to a bunch of fans at conventions and stuff, you know, or good friends or whatever. Yeah, I got no memorabilia left. I don't care. Just pay me.
Spanky wants to know if you still talk to Jimmy Garvin. What's he up to? And what are your thoughts on Playboy Buddy Rose? He also wants to know.
Okay, I talk with Jimmy at least once every couple of months. He's, I don't know if he's retired yet. He probably is, but he was a pilot, a commercial pilot, and could retire if he wants to. And what was the other question about who?
Playboy Buddy Rose, who you probably had some interaction with in Portland.
Oh yeah, Buddy was a fun guy. What a great guy. And now I know he came in and worked for Vince for a while, and I don't know what happened to him. Or God bless him. I don't know if he's alive or not. I hope he's not dead, but
He
he's a
is
great guy.
dead,
I love him.
sadly. He passed away a while ago.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't keep up on that stuff, and I knew I'd heard a lot of guys. See, there's a lot of guys that died that I hear about and then forget about. But bottom line was, Buddy was a great talent, fun to be around, and fun to work with.
You already touched on this, but Michael wants to know, in your view, what happened with Buck Zumhoff.
I think he thought with his crotch. You know what I mean? And it brought him shame and illegality. There's nothing wrong with liking women, but you can't like women under 18 when you're 30. You know what I mean?
Doug wants to know, what were your workouts like in your prime and what are they like today?
Oh, in the prime, they weren't much different. They were a lot heavier weight, of course, but nowadays I just go to the gym Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and I do push and pull. Mondays are chest, shoulders, tries. Tuesdays are legs, back, and buys. And the same thing Thursday and Friday. And that's it, brother. I just try to keep in shape. I'm probably down to 170 right now, which is good. It's better to have less weight when you're older. It's harder. It's not as hard on your heart.
Yeah, definitely. John wants to know your thoughts on being part of the beginning of Windy City Pro Wrestling.
Sammy DeSera was a great guy, and I lived in Indianapolis. He was in Chicago, and he came to me and asked if I would do that for him because he knew, you know, I had a little bit of notoriety, and I helped him get started and was their champion and did all I could. And you know, he lasted for a while, but man, you can't compete with these big guys. They got millions of dollars. You know, he didn't have TV per se on a normal station type thing, and he just needed, if he had some money backing him, he probably could have made it. But you know, he's just a small independent guy, and I love him to death. Sammy was a hustler, a great guy, paid me good, and I can't say anything bad about him. But he was in the wrong business to make money because there was too many sharks in it.
Yeah, as a wrestling promoter in the more recent years, it's very difficult to make money.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, buddy, just to let you know, my phone's running right down. So if I go off the air, it's because my battery ran out.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just ask a couple more questions here. Daryl wants to know if you have any memories of working with Larry Zbyszko.
Oh, hell yes. Zbyszko and I lived together for a while in Minneapolis. He's a good guy. Larry, and what a hell, he's got a lot of balls too. He he held up Vince for a payoff with Bruno. I don't know anybody that's ever done something like that. You know what I mean? And anyway, he came through Minneapolis. Very good. Good, great worker, good guy. Loved to travel with him. A lot of fun. Like to party, like to have fun. And I think he and Kathy Gagne are married. I think they're living down here in Florida somewhere, last I heard. But yeah, he's a good guy. Larry was fun to travel with and a hell of a worker.
And the last question I'll ask, Roger F. wants to know, what was the most painful finishing move you had to take? And do you have any nagging injuries from your wrestling career?
Oh, are you kidding? I got nagging injuries up and down my spine, my shoulders, my knees. Yeah, it takes a physical toll. People don't realize it, even with a mat and a little bit of give to it with a 3/4 inch pad over plywood. Your body takes tremendous amount of damage. My chiropractor and specialist that does all this says, man, what did you do to your back and your shoulders? And anyway, but that's the thing. It's a painful business, you know, and that's why I got out when I did. I think if I would have stayed as long as Hulk did, I would have had the problems he has now. You know, he's been in multiple operations. That's what happens when you stay in it. Hulk was in it, you know, over 30 years. You know, I was just in it for 15 to 20, and he went, well, probably 40 then for him, but it takes its toll on your body, and buddy, it's not fun. I mean, I'm functional, don't get me wrong, but man, it's hard getting out of bed in the morning. And you know, that's why I keep go work out. I don't do anything heavy, but I just keep working out so I can move, you know.
Now you are on Twitter. Where can fans follow you on social media? I know you're not a big social media guy, but I'm sure a lot of fans on here would like to look you up.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. That's the only one I do. You know, I mean, I have an email address, but yeah, Twitter is one I look at because I have some friends on there, and that's how I get to talk with them. But I'm on there. All you gotta do is look me up.
Do you do autographs? There's a fan on here asking if he wants an autograph. Is there a way to purchase one from you?
Well, I don't sell them. No, if they want one, they can mail something to me, but I don't give out my home address, and I would not want to do that where I am right now for certain reasons, which I won't discuss. But I used to let people have an address, but that got screwed up. So yeah, I don't know how you're going to do it because I'm you know, I'm not going to let you have my address.
There you go. Maybe one day you'll do a fan convention or something, and they can come see you there. But I know you try and
maybe, but that probably not. And I'll be straight honest with you. I did a couple of those, and they're fine. But you know, I'm old. I want to stay around the house. I want to watch TV. I want to go to the swimming pool. I want to go, you know, work out. I don't want to go travel at all. You know, I went to a convention, probably 2 or 3 of them in the last 4 or 5 years. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the pay. I enjoyed the signing the autographs in there. But man, I was so tired when I got home. I said, geez, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't have to. You know, if I had to, that's a different story. But I don't need the money.
Definitely, I understand. Well, I was a fan of yours, and it's been a pleasure and honor talking to you. And I'll let you close this interview up with whatever you want to tell the fans.
All right. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I love your show. I hope you stay on for the rest of your life because I know you're going to outlive me. Everybody out there, listen to this man's show. He's good. He's very good. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video.